which is organised by the Schumacher Institute and GreenDependent from Hungary and SCAD from southern India. And I'm Jeneth Parker, the research director of the Schumacher Institute. And you'll be meeting some of the members of GreenDependent and SCAD today in the presentations and hearing about their work. And so today we sort of moving to the practical projects that we're supporting through Tree Circles. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to encourage people to help fund tree planting through donations to these organizations. So today you will also have a chance to see where that money goes and what's done with it. And it's very inspiring. We've been working with GreenDependent and with SCAD for a long number of years now, and we have a lot in common. But the ethical frame and the global sustainability frame, global eco-justice frame that we are using here is that of convergence. And that's about richer countries reducing their use of Earth's resources, including the atmosphere on which we all depend and which is crucial for climate. So richer countries reducing their use and poorer countries coming up to a level of good living where we can converge at a sustainable level. And that's our sort of vision for how we can go forward and share this planet, basically. So I'm really happy to introduce this more practical part of the conference. Can I just ask though, so yesterday we had some initial breakout groups. I wanted to just quickly get a few bits of feedback. We will send notes to all you participants on stuff that's come up. But I just want to give us a little feel of some of the things that came up for you in those breakout discussions. Anybody want to chip in and say what made an impression on you?
Jen, I'll be happy to start if you like.
Thank you.
Sure. And if someone else in my group would like to chip in, there were so many wonderful ideas. And I think what really struck me personally is, aside from our love of trees, how, all of us came from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and looking at how we need to find a way to make trees relevant to people, depending on their different interests, their objectives with various projects and so forth. And one thing that really hit me was one participant, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember your first name, from Romania, mentioned the idea that it's up to us to pass on the knowledge from the conference to others so that they can pass it on further. So that's what really struck me.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's a great idea, that we like seeding things and hope. Well, I'm mixing my metaphors here, seeding things and then the ripples expand. Yeah. Anybody else want to chip in? Just unmute yourself and say something if you want to chip in. Sure, it'll be fine.
Yeah, Janet.
Yeah,
you know that when Ian was presenting his paper, I was shocked about the disease the tree, especially the tree is having. Now, we didn't think of that. It's a hidden area. Nobody thought of that. And it's quite shocking.
Yeah.
In the UK, quite a lot of trees are like disappearing. And it struck me a lot.
Yes. Yes, it's a real problem of it's just like the pandemic that we're experiencing. Now we have, with globalization, diseases can spread so easily,
What I found very interesting on that point, Charles, was that a very small change in temperature can shift the population of insects or other things, and that then allows diseases to spread because the insects were controlling the disease. So it's a kind of knock-on after knock-on effect all the way through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, complex systems effects.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. No, it's a really crucial point. Any other contributions before we move on? Any other thoughts that particularly struck you?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Marion here. It's the first time I'd ever been in a breakout group
Oh,
in Zoom, so
yeah.
I didn't know what I was gonna find, but I thought the kind of leader, facilitator was really good. And I was just on a general point, I was just really enthused to see so many people doing so many good things where we don't often get good news about what people are doing. And also the sheer number of women making this happen. Because I've worked in a man's world, so it is just lovely as an engineer to see all these women doing good things as well. I don't know whether that was reflective of all the attendees, but we had a lot of women in our group and it was just really nice to learn from them.
Oh, thank you very much. That's great. Yes, it is so encouraging, isn't it? When you begin, because we only hear bad news, and newspapers love bad news because it helps sell newspapers. And I know we're not in a newspaper-driven world now, but it's the same on social media, isn't it? Doom scrolling, so-called. You get it kind of captures you, and you're looking for the next worst thing that's happening. It's great to hear about all the good stuff, especially as we're kind of isolated due to this pandemic. Anybody else want to chip in? No. Okay. Right. Well, let's get started with our program, and there'll be more opportunities to think about this and discuss positive ideas later on in this session. So I'm going to start by asking my friend and colleague, Dr. Jen Lloyd-Payne, to give us a quick overview around tree planting and biodiversity. Jen is a fellow at the Schumacher Institute and has been leading a course recently on the ecosystems on your doorstep. Over to you, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. I'm just going to kind of lead on by just a little bit of positivity, some photographs, and just to get people thinking about trees and their importance in terms of biodiversity. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so what's so special about trees? Planting for biodiversity, and many of us are aware of the benefits of trees, or we probably wouldn't be here if we didn't have that interest. And yesterday we discussed ecosystem services, the social and ecological aspects of planting trees, carbon sequestration, flood mitigation, enhancing physical and spiritual well-being, in connecting us with the natural world, and as well as furnishing the wood for products on which human beings rely. And there we go, just a few, such as shelter and so forth. And trees, of course, are aesthetically pleasing. So today the focus is going to be on raising our tree awareness and how we can spread this to our own communities, learning about on-the-ground projects. So, biodiversity. I think most of us know what biodiversity entails, but basically biological diversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, including all life forms. And the more variety there is within a habitat or a landscape, the more biodiverse that environment will be. And so more biodiversity equals greater health of an ecosystem and greater resistance to challenges that those ecosystems may face. And that's really the big picture. And improving biodiversity can and does happen at the grassroots level on the smallest pieces of waste ground. That could be sinking a bowl into a back garden to create a mini pond ecosystem, and of course, planting a tree. And the more diversity of biological characteristics among organisms, the more stable that ecosystem will be. And ecology is all about interactions and the roles that living organisms and non-living factors play within that. So settle back, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. And this is not from my back garden where I'm going to be focusing my story, but this is a woodland road in Vermont where I moved from to the UK. So basically, let's talk trees. And following on from Ian's discussion at the beginning of yesterday's talk, thinking about cycles and systems. Well, in mid-December, I let my dog out, and my dog is very old and she likes to go out in the middle of the night. So I let her out, and it was a very mild, very damp night. And as I waited for her, I decided to sit down and I listened. And it was maybe about 2 a.m. And there was a barely perceptible scratching sound off to my right. And it was coming from under an old apple tree growing in my small garden. And I have a pretty urban garden. And it had once been my neighbor's pasture for grazing goats many years ago. And I listened for a few more minutes. The sounds kept on. And so I decided to shine my torch, and I saw movement on the ground underneath the apple tree. Lots of movement. Earthworms, slugs, centipedes, woodlice, and spiders, all doing their thing, scurrying under the leaf litter and so forth. And all those invertebrates were busily decomposing the dead fall apples and the fallen leaves left over from the autumn. And you could physically see them and hear them doing their work, turning everything into compost. And the spiders that I saw were most likely preying on the detritivores, and the centipedes were probably hunting them all. And so each species was keeping the balance all underneath my apple tree. And the previous spring, I'd watched as bees had traveled from flower to flower on the tree pollinating, because we had a lot of time in lockdown to watch our trees. And a family of great tits, a pair of great tits had raised their young in a hole in the trunk of this old tree. And the fledglings, and this was the first time I saw one peep out, left the nest as the sun became warmer in May. And wood pigeons built their stick nests in the shelter of the tree's dense branches. And in midsummer, I would watch bats flying around the canopy and along the hedgerow hunting insects. And the apples grew and they ripened. Birds fed their young with the insects that ate the apples. If there's anyone who minds wasps, sorry. But wasps also drank the juice in their late season quest for sugar as part of their life cycle. And this was a hedgehog that I'd found and continued to feed underneath the tree, because hedgehogs and badgers also foraged for worms and other invertebrates underneath the tree as well. And this is not, well, sitting on the fence right next to the tree. Each year, this tree produces a bounty, and family and neighbors come to pick the apples, and they're enjoyed in numerous pies around the neighborhood and our town. And the remainder of the apples fall, and many are feasted on by squirrels and wood mice, and wood mouse there. And small mammals and birds help to disperse the seeds through caching and other means so that other trees may grow. And then it's furthered on by foxes, other predators preying on those small rodents. So as we slowly approach spring, the robins are now sitting, proclaiming their territory each morning from its branches. And the seedlings of other flowering plants are beginning to sprout, showing climate change that they're doing at the end of January, but at the base of the trunk from this really fertile soil that is nourished by the remainder of last year's apple crop and those leaves. So this one tree supports an ecological community. And imagine what many trees could do to increase biodiversity if you just think of this one tree. So talking about biodiversity, trying to stay away from the negative, but the decline in biodiversity and the climate crisis are interconnected. And trees play a very valuable role in mitigating both, providing habitat for, and excuse me, habitat for wildlife. And say this is a mixture of trees and animals using trees in the UK and North America. This is a barred owl, a very snowy wood. And this is from the UK, rooks feeding their young. And wood ducks using a snag in a wetland as well. So all of the different uses for trees in terms of biodiversity. Also landscape connectivity, corridors for wildlife, and plant regeneration are crucial, particularly in urban settings. So enhancing biodiversity contributes also to food resilience on a local level. And enhancing biodiversity and food resilience are not mutually exclusive, and one benefits the other. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that in a little while. But this issue, of course, has been highlighted even more during the pandemic. And globally, forests are home to 80% of terrestrial biodiversity. So over 1 million people depend on forests for food, shelter, energy, and income. And it's not only woodlands that are important, but also scattered trees for biodiversity. In rural areas, scattered trees are valuable in the restoration of habitat and food, and for food producers such as farmers, and on a smaller scale through pollination of crops, shade for wildlife, for livestock, and more. So the projects you're going to be hearing about are going to illustrate this a bit, but according to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, IUCN, nature-based solutions could, quote, protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems, while also addressing challenges in society, contributing to human well-being, and enhancing biodiversity. So moving forward through the times of COVID-19 and beyond, we have an opportunity to create a greener future. And these projects will illustrate this. And there's all different ways to promote biodiversity. And each of these projects are different, but they contribute pieces to a larger puzzle. So I think the takeaway is that I just like us all to think what we can do for trees. In terms of engagement, trees are a wonderful way to foster appreciation for and conservation of our wild places. Whether that is in a small urban space or a large nature reserve, but thinking about that interconnectedness of life. And you can get involved, as Jenna said, with tree circles or similar projects. We hope you'll get involved with tree circles, either globally or closer to home. So I'd like to send you away with a little bit of homework. This is one of my favorite trees. It was a beautiful day here this morning, and I actually visited this tree in my local park. This is a giant sequoia, and your homework is get to know a tree. Go out into your gardens, parks, anywhere. It can be any species of tree. The more mature, the better. Sit down beside it, observe what plants and animals are using it, what's crawling and growing on the bark and beneath it. Touch the bark, smell it. I wouldn't recommend you taste it unless you're very brave. Following on from what Ian had said, think about the roots. If you can see the roots, wonderful. If you can't, try to imagine what they might look like and what's living beneath your feet. Notice the shape of the leaves, how seeds might be dispersed, and connect the tree with this space. What might it have seen through history? And then think about how you might connect others with trees, because every tree contributes to the story. So if you'd ever like to have a chat, please feel free to get in touch. And for those who would like to continue our discussions today at the end, we're going to be talking more at a date to be announced, and I'll be facilitating a group. And so hopefully it's something that people might be interested in. So watch this space. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Jen. That was a wonderful story. Thank you very much.
I hope it wasn't too long.
Yeah, no, I love that actually. I sort of got this vision in my mind of your apple tree in the dark, you know, with this seething mass of creatures all underneath it. Yeah, amazing.
That's what it was like.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and we will announce that the idea for a discussion group again towards the end of today. Okay, so can we now move to our next speaker, Charles Amertan. Sorry, Charles. I always just know you as Charles from SCAD. Don't know.
That's easier.
Yes, Charles from SCAD, who is the program director at SCAD, which stands for Social Change and Development in Tamil Nadu, India. And Charles is going to tell us about their extensive and long-standing tree planting program. And just one little anecdote, we did a project with SCAD, and we were lucky enough to go and visit SCAD campus. And it was just amazing that when they moved there, the small mountain behind and the whole area was basically scrub and very, very open. And now it's completely regenerated. They went planting on the mountain, and the place is full of beautiful trees, birds, and other life. It's just an amazing testament to what can be achieved. So we're always super impressed with what SCAD does. And so Charles is going to tell us about the tree planting projects in the community that link to people and their well-being. Okay, over to you, Charles.
Thank you, Jen. That was an overwhelming introduction. Oh, good evening, everybody. And I'm Charles from SCAD. And we'd like to share with you what's happening at SCAD and what we have done over the years. And SCAD is for Social Change and Development, an NGO in southern India. It was founded by Dr. Cletus Babu in the year 1985. And he started his work in 5 villages in the year 1985. And at the moment, we are working in 600 villages in 3 province or region, Tirunelveli, Tuticorin, Kanyakumari, and directly and indirectly about 600,000 people are involved in our activities. This is our founder, Dr. Cletus and Amali. And these are the core areas of SCAD. Like we work in community education and higher education and providing holistic healthcare for the community, then including the neglected communities like gypsies, snake catchers, salt pan workers, palmyra climbers, and different other communities.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Charles, but
Yeah.
we can't see your PowerPoint at the moment.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. So have you tried sharing your screen? Is it working?
I shared it. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sorry for that.
There we go. That's great.
Can you see it now?
Yes, but that's it. Great.
Thank you. Okay, so this is our founders, and these are the core areas which we are working, like education, holistic healthcare, like especially promoting indigenous medicine and working with the neglected communities like gypsies, snake catchers, salt pan workers, palmyra climbers, people affected by leprosy, and gypsies. And of course, we work with the communities on community organization. We organize communities into groups. We have about 3,500 women's self-help groups which are working. And also we work in especially ecology and environmental activities. So there are a few important areas which you work on ecology and environment. The first thing is to provide food security through organic farming practices, and covering gray areas into green areas, and to promote mitigate climate change and to carbon sequestration. We promote biochar, and we have a big biodigester. You can see on the picture, the blue one is the biggest biodigester. We convert all the organic wet waste into methane gas and produce electricity. And we promote quite a lot of beneficial microbes for agriculture and other activities. And we restore the traditional water structures in the villages. And we promote like solar and wind energy. We have our own wind energy unit. We produce about 250 kilowatt energy to sustain our energy needs. And we produce about 10 kilowatt biomass energy and about 25 kilowatt solar energy. Then with some of our friends like Urban Trust, we have initiated an eco house. You can see the picture there. And this is to give like a sustainable housing facility for the future. So and coming to the tree planting program, because this is the important thing which we are discussing now, we want to create wherever possible, like the gray space or a barren land and the green cover. And we plant trees wherever possible, like especially with agricultural land. We interact with the farmers and we plant trees there, and along the bunds of the village ponds, village pathways, the public roads and government roads and other places, public utilities like schools, colleges, then churches, worship places. So we try to plant trees wherever possible, and we engage community in this whole project. And what type of trees we plant? There are different things, like 4 or 5 different ones. The important ones are fruit trees. The first important thing which we plant trees is for food. There should be food security, because the country like India, with a huge population, more than 1.3 billion people, there should be a proper food security for them, and as well as a nutrition supplement. So we promote fruit trees. Then the second important thing, fodder for cattle, because India, all the tropical countries, the access for vegetation as well as animals. So we promote trees for fodder and of course timber value. Then because yesterday we were discussing about the spiritual places, the sacred groves. So we promote a lot of spiritual based trees like neem, bamboo. So in India, like each god or goddess is associated with an animal and a plant. So we try to encourage that, and because the people are associated God easily, and they promote, they plant trees. Then of course we promote ornamental trees. The most important one which we plant and promote is medicinal plants. So you can see the different type of plants we promote in our region. So you can see that these some of the plantations we have done. Like the first one is Goa plantation, and we promote pomegranate, Indian gooseberry, and along with the tree plantation, we try to encourage intercropping like vegetables. And at the bottom picture is mainly for medicinal plants. This is one particularly I want to mention here. This tree is called the Asian Palmyra palm tree. This is the tree for Tamil Nadu, like the Tamil Nadu state tree. And this particular tree is one of, it's like a gold for us. It's like a black gold for us. So the whole tree is used right from medicinal use. This is also called jaggery palm. Because we use a lot of sugar. Instead of that traditional way, people use a lot of jaggery, the country sugar, and we promote this one. So when you plant this particular tree, you can't get the yield. It takes about 30 years, minimum 30 years. So there's a big belief that if you plant a tree, it's for the next generation, for your children. So that's the belief. So what we do, during fruiting season, we organize communities, children, and collect the seeds and plant them. So now I'm going to show you some of the achievements. It's not achievements, what has happened over the years. So these some of the pictures that I'm going to show you. It's about the SCAD campus and SCAD institution and some of the SCAD communities which you are working. So the picture, this one is the first SCAD campus. It was a barren land, about 16 acres. Now we have about 200 acres, of course. The 16 acres land was a barren land with a few trees and a small building. And now you can see the same campus. It's completely covered with trees. In this particular campus, we have planted more than 200,000 trees. That's what Janet was mentioning about this campus. It's completely green now. And this is one of our organic garden. This is about 15 acres. And you can see it's a barren land. And now you can see the same campus is changed like this. Within 10 years time, this completely green. So you can see the difference. So this is the campus, the overview of the campus. And we have a huge biodigester here, which recycles all the organic wet waste, and we produce energy. And on the left is the biochar production unit. So if you see at the far end, it was like the campus was like this, and you can see it's also greening now. This is one of our villages in Solpan. This picture was taken in 1989, and the same village is like this. After, so the one on the left top, this picture was taken in 2000, I think, and 2010. This is 2018. So you can see the difference. This is one of our education campus. We have a polytechnic, and this picture was taken in 1998, and the same campus is like this now. And you have these all these trees planted over the years. And another important thing what we do, we work with the villages, and we restore all the traditional water structures. The important thing what we do is plant trees along the hedges of the water structures. So we involve communities to plant trees. And yesterday our friend was mentioning about the sacred groves. This is one of the sacred grove in one of the region at the top picture. And at the bottom, you'll see a temple. So inside, in each temple, each big temple, there'll be a garden. It's called Nandavanam, the sacred garden. And what we are trying to do, wherever possible, we try to plant trees which will associate with the particular god. This one is not far from the campus. So this one is a very important picture that I took. On the left, you'll see two, it's not one tree, it's two trees. The neem tree, and it's called here in India we call Vepamaram and Narasamaram. So it's twin two trees together they plant. It's a religious importance. And on the right, you will see even in the community, people, when there is a holy tree, they start worshipping that, and they put a small idol there, and it become a holy place. So this is how people started protecting the trees. Probably Janet and Ian, you could recognize this place. This is near the waterfalls. This is one of the sacred grove deep in the forest, and we work with the forest department. We have planted huge number of trees there, and you can see Alice standing there. So this one, engaging community, we try to plant trees in the schools, community land, villages. So wherever possible, we try to plant trees. So these are the stakeholders like women groups, women and children, farmers, women self-help group, rural youth. Panchayat is the local body, government, institution, worship places, NGOs, and government departments. And you'll see that we involve women and children in planting trees. So each school will have an eco club. We are working with about 250 schools, and each school have a small eco club, and we encourage the children to plant trees in their villages. And we encourage the farmers and the community members to plant trees. We involve all the women self-help groups. This is one of the mass tree planting program. We had it a couple of years back. And we involve students to plant trees. And of course, Dr. Cletus is planting a tree there, and staff members, they're planting trees on a rainy day. So to promote these type of activities, we have our own like technical team.
Okay,
we have
Charles,
a farm science
Charles, you have about 2 minutes left.
Thank you. Like a
Okay.
farm science center, we have different specialists to promote these activities. Then these are the facilities in the farm science center. And so from 1980 to 2019, we have planted nearly 2.3 million trees. And we have 3 nurseries to promote. Today, this year, we have planted altogether like another 60,000, and it's 2.4 million now. And the future plan, we want to extend to 2 more nursery places, exclusively support women. There'll be 30 women members engaged in the nursery planting, and we are planning for another 100,000 trees every year. And our part in this particular project is with the Schumacher Institute and GreenDependent, and of course we want to involve these local government forest department. And after seeing the activities of SCAD, we got a lot of really highly appreciated awards like National Award and State Award. And thank you for watching this presentation, and we're very happy that if you can join us, and in case if you have any thing, you can contact us, and you can also visit our website. Like there are 2 websites you can visit. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Charles. That was absolutely great. Thank you. When I see what you've achieved, it's really, really amazing. So yeah, thank you. Any questions for Charles? We'll be dealing with them after the next presentation. So that's Oh, great. Thank you, Charles. That's wonderful. So we'll move straight on to the next presentation from our other partner in this, GreenDependent from Hungary. And I'm going to introduce to you Edina Vardovic, who is the research director of GreenDependent. And they do a large range of things, including various research projects, but this is their tree planting program. So thank you, Edina.
Thank you, Janet, for the introduction, and welcome everyone from Hungary too. Well, we are a tiny organization compared to SCAD, so I'm feeling a bit humble about presenting our activities. And we are really far from planting more than 2 million trees, but maybe one day we will get there. So we are GreenDependent, a small public benefit, non-profit organization. And we are about researching and promoting sustainable lifestyles. And in order to do this, we do research as well as practical activities. We really want to connect these two fields. And as you can see, we get really hands-on. We get up from our research desks and get really hands-on with planting trees and sorting them for distribution. And how it all started, how tree planting started at GreenDependent. It started a bit more than 10 years ago. We were having a lot of projects about helping people lead sustainable lifestyles, and we wanted to do these projects as sustainably as possible. So all our training and events and everything was organized in as green a way as possible. And we also thought that, okay, if we have green events, maybe we should also calculate their impact, carbon footprint, and also start planting trees with participants. So this is what you can see in the pictures is our first planting event, which we did with our local climate group that we started to see how people responded to this idea and how enthusiastic they were about getting involved. And because we saw that they really liked this idea, now tree planting has become a standard part of all our projects. So no matter what we do, whether it is with municipalities and introducing energy management systems or researching 1.5-degree lifestyles or whatever, we calculate the impact of our activities, mostly the events and travels. We talk about this to our participants, again, no matter who they are, and we show them how we reduce our impact, what we do to reduce our impact. And also we plant trees to compensate for the impact, if possible, together with participants. So we involve municipalities, households, and even people in international projects in planting the trees. And because people saw we were doing it and they liked it and got interested and wanted us to help them do the same thing for their events, for their travels, for their lifestyles, our project Tree Dependent was born. And we also evolved from carrying trees in the back of a car to using a van, renting a van to carry and transport the trees. What is the general idea or the overall framework of how we work? So we first mostly calculate the carbon footprint of something, of travels, of lifestyles, of events, whatever. So we collect data and then we calculate the carbon footprint as well as the number of trees needed to compensate for this footprint. And then we get the trees from a nursery and then we plant the trees. Mostly we give them to schools and kindergartens and other non-profit initiatives. I will talk about all these, well, most of these steps, not the calculation. So the trees we plant are all native to Hungary or the larger ecological area containing Hungary, the Carpathian Basin, and they are all fruit trees. So we are not planting forest trees, but fruit trees. native fruit trees, and we get the trees from this very inspiring gentleman that you can see in the picture, who is a forester in Hungary, and he goes around Hungary and the Carpathian Basin to collect native fruit trees and propagates them in his nursery, which he calls a fairy garden. He even started a fairy garden movement in Hungary. So we always get the trees from this really inspiring person. And just to give you an example of the diversity, it's from his website, the Fairy Garden website. And these are some of the apples that he collects. And you can see 10 different types of apples here. And then you can also see that there are actually 12 pages. So more than 100 types of apples that he has collected, and with our help he distributes them again all over the country and also outside the borders of the country. And these are just the apples. You have the same variety in pears and other native fruits as well. So we really want to help spread these varieties within Hungary as well. And where we plant the trees, we plant in the gardens of different educational institutions, kindergarten schools, private schools, all kinds of schools who are starting or developing their gardens. And in these gardens, they usually not just only have fruit trees, but also vegetables and other things. And because well, we have been doing it for 10 years and the interest is really great. So we had to expand our network of planters. So we are now planting in non-profit gardens as well, like organizations who want to start orchards to create jobs for disadvantaged groups, or they want to teach gardening to people like SCAD is doing in India. So that people can grow their own food, especially in deprived areas. And we also work with church gardens or any non-profit gardens who are interested in planting native trees. And just to give you an idea, this is how we plant with kids. So it's really from the youngest to the oldest, not really universities, to the end of high school or secondary school, really. And in COVID times, it was more with the adults, the teachers and caretakers in schools that took part in planting because children were at home in homeschooling. But a lot of times these teachers or caretakers took videos of the planting and posted them online so that the children could see what was happening in their school gardens and yards. So who do we plant for? Who are the sponsors or the funders of this project who want to plant with us? It's the first big group is individuals, families, communities who are interested in getting to know, for example, the travel footprint of their big, mostly overseas journeys and want to compensate for it and ask us to help them plant trees. And we also help people and communities. We had a community approaching us and asking us to help them calculate their lifestyle footprint and also start planting trees with them. And then there are people who want to plant trees for special events, like finishing secondary school. A class of 18-year-olds approached us to help them plant trees to commemorate this event. Or there is a guy who is turning 50 this year and he wants to plant trees with his friends to make this occasion memorable. And then there are also people who just want to donate to us. And in each case, we try to involve them in the planting. So we ask them whether they themselves would plant, not just give us money, but whether they would like a few trees that they could plant in their own gardens or in their children's school gardens. And then another big group of sponsors are organizations and companies, and there are very many different reasons why they ask us to plant trees. Well, one big thing is, you can see for each larger group, is that they want us to calculate the carbon footprint of their conferences and events, and then plant trees to compensate for it. And then we take the trees and plant them with the schools and nonprofit initiatives. But there are other things as well. For example, there was a bank who announced a big green challenge for its employees and told the employees that if they undertake a green challenge, they will plant a tree for them with us. So we planted close to 4,000 trees for this bank, because a lot of employees took part in this challenge. And then the same bank started an ethical investment, and instead of giving out, folders and key rings and whatnots to their customers, they told them that, okay, if you select this ethical investment, we will plant a tree for you. Or we work with large international conferences, not just sustainability oriented, but like medical conferences or conference of archaeologists who ask us to help them green their events. And also they, with our help, they offer participants a voluntary option of calculating and compensating for their travel footprints. So to summarize, in the tree dependent program, we connect carbon compensation with biodiversity conservation, because we plant native trees and we want to plant many different kinds of trees, and also building food resilience in the country and in communities, and also building communities, working with schools, NGOs, and companies. And often the company who is donating or paying for the trees gets involved in the planting at the school. So we are building all kinds of partnerships. And also, which is not in, I didn't include it in this picture, is education. Well, of course, we could summarize this in SDGs as well, the same thing. And here in the background, as everyone was showing their favorite tree, you can see one of my favorite trees. It's not a fruit tree, it's an oak tree in one of the mountain ranges in Hungary. Anyway, I won't go into the details because that's what I've been talking about. It's just a different way of summarizing the impacts. So to summarize, as you could see from my presentation, diversity is really important for us in the trees we plant, in why and how we plant, and how the different people and organizations can engage with us. So there are really many different ways. So anyone who wants to plant, they can come and we will help them plant, and we will try to convince them to plant in their own garden or in their own streets and neighborhoods as well. And there is also diversity in where we plant. We have a quite a big database now of schools and nonprofit initiatives and churches, which is continually expanding because there is really a lot of interest in planting trees in Hungary at the moment. And so we are really happy to have become part of tree circles, because we feel we are learning a lot from our partners in the UK and also in India. Because we, inspired partly by SCAD, we started working with very poor regions in Hungary and started to see how we could help them plant gardens and teach them how to take care of the trees, how to wait for the trees to produce fruit. So thank you for this inspiration within tree circles. And yes, thank you for listening. And I have put all my colleagues now on this slide because they are in this event together with me. So don't hesitate to ask questions from them as well. They will be there in the small group discussions too. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Adina. That's really brilliant stuff. I'm very interested about not just the diversity of the trees you're planting and this amazing fairy garden fellow, but also the diversity of the pathways that you attract people to support you. I think that's really interesting too. Okay, so we have some questions to start off with for our speakers, and I think there's two that go together, and they're about how do you, a lot of schemes fail because people don't look after the trees. Schemes in the UK, that is to say, and elsewhere. So how do you both ensure that the trees get looked after? What's the plan? And maybe I could ask Charles first, and then Adina. So what sort of plan do you have for ensuring the trees get looked after?
See, whatever we are doing, whatever we want to do, it should be a community engagement program involving community, whether it's children or youth or farmers or women group. We should ensure that they take the responsibilities. So we don't directly plant any trees. We involve them to do that one. We involve the children to do that one. And say, for example, in the schools, each child will be given one tree and they have to look after. So if they are studying in a primary school for 3 to 5 years, they have to look after that tree, and sometimes there'll be a competition. Who is looking after the best tree will be given a prize. So it's their responsibility to take care of the tree, not only tree or any community program. And in the villages, the most important people are women self-help groups. Women take the responsibility, and they take responsibilities to look after that, any community engagement. And if there is any like mortality, we replace them, it's replaced, and we ensure that at least 95 to 98% survival of the tree. That's how we do.
Thank you, Adina.
Yes, for us, it's a very important criteria when selecting schools and nonprofit initiatives that they need to show how they will take care of the trees. They have to answer questions. We have like an application for organizations to become tree planters with us. And there we ask them about how they are planning to take care of the trees. And we are not usually giving trees to be planted like by the street or just, anywhere. This is why we work with school gardens and initiatives, because they usually have gardeners or people who know about taking care of the trees.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really interesting. So SCAD are asking you, Adina, and your colleagues, they'd be interested to hear from you about how you calculate these various footprints. And I might, that's an interesting one, because in the UK there was quite a debate about this carbon footprint thing, because offsetting, so-called, your carbon activities was seen by many green groups to be a bit of a bad thing, because it might not make people change their habits. But I think that maybe is a bit self-defeating, and there's a whole, different approaches for different organizations and contexts, I think. So what are the key ways that you operate to calculate?
So first, we make it very clear with everyone that it's not, even if you compensate, you have to reduce. So for example, if we work with a company, we will stop working with them if after a second year, we don't see any change in the way how they organize events. And we are very happy to give them advice. And we, at the end of each project, we provide them with a report in which we list what they are already doing, but we also give them tips on how they could reduce further. So we always make this very clear with everyone, that it's not, you cannot just do anything if you plant trees, you need to reduce. The calculator bit, how we calculate, I'm very happy to provide more information, but I think here it would take more up too much time. But we actually have different calculators for the events and for lifestyles and for travels. We try to use international best practice, and we work with different organizations that work in this area as well. I'm happy to say more, but maybe not now, because it would take us into a different direction, I think.
Yes, I take your point, that information can be exchanged. Okay, so this is a quite a hard question, I think, from our professor of tree planting who spoke yesterday. What criteria do you use when you're selecting a tree for planting in a particular place? And maybe I could ask you to start with that one, Charles.
Yeah, as I said earlier, like there are different aspects of importance in tree planting, like food, fodder, and herbal. See, these are the important things for a community need, because it should ensure the food supply, and it should give like fodder for the cattle. The third important thing, it should give medicinal value for at least for the minor ailments. These are the three things, the first criteria we take. And of course, the other extra things like the spiritual or sacred grows, which comes at later stage. The first criteria for our tree planting program, food, fodder, and medicinal value. Then the fourth one is timber, of course, anything for wood value.
Charles, can I add one more point with your presentation?
Yes, please.
Yeah, in addition to the food, fodder, and medicine, we are also concentrating more on the income part of the community, income part to the community, because we are giving a lot of fruit trees, not only the trees, fodder trees, we are also supplying a lot of fruit trees. So after 3 years, people harvest the fruits and sell it in the market, and whatever the amount they are generating from the trees, they will use it for the village development activities. That is the reason why on the ponds of Uranis, we are encouraging our people to plant a lot of fruit trees. So after 3 years, they will harvest the fruits and sell it in the market, and the amount realized from the sale of fruits, they will use it for their village development activities.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much for that extra piece of information about how you also think about how people can make a living or support themselves from
Can I add on thing?
Yeah. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. Sorry?
Sorry, what? A word on Charles' presentation. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said.
Yeah, as far as SCAD operations is concerned, I have the opportunity to go and visit over there, and they are promoting on concept called effective microorganisms, which consists of consortium of micro. We are not considering the soil microorganism biodiversity, which is the very basic concept the SCAD is doing.
Yes.
See, when there is rich in microbes, you got so much of nutrient cycling, and it is the basic thing that provides food to molluscans or centipedes or millipedes or squirrels or birds, anything, because when the soil is healthy and it is able to supply the needed water and nutrients to the plant will grow where the birds and other things come. And the basic thing of the biodiversity is the soil microbial biodiversity, which the SCAD is doing, and very happy to note it that. And a small suggestion is, whatever the program they are having in planting, tree planting, they must be add these microorganisms to the planting site also.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that point about the life of soil, which is very close to my heart. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that, Charles? Just briefly. How you prepare the soil?
Yeah, see, we don't give the plant as it is. It's a kit. There'll be a plant along with like pesticide, biofertilizer, a small bottle of microorganism. And because I didn't explain the whole technical thing which we do, this will, and we also ensure that the plant grow, and there'll be, you'd have seen in all the tree planting program, there's a small temporary uh, like um,
Because
like a shade and a protective net. So those are the things which will ensure that survival of the plant.
Thank you very much. And now we'll turn to Adina, and then we'll probably have to wrap up this. I've got one more question after that, and then that's the last one. So Adina.
So we let the school gardens and initiatives choose their own trees, but we provide them with a detailed list of all the species available, so they can pick from that list. And on the website of this guy who is the fairy garden person, they can find the information about the different species, like what kind of soil those trees like, which part of Hungary they are from, and all that. So they can make sure that they select the right trees for their region. And of course, as I said, most of these places have professional gardeners or someone who understands about trees. So this helps them select the trees. And just like Charles and Scott, we also provide when we give them the trees, we provide some instructions about planting and creating protection around the trees and these kind of issues, and to use compost. We don't give them compost, but it's in our instructions that they should get it, and when planting, put it with the trees.
Okay, thank you very much. And this last question links to the question of self-sufficiency. So people feeding themselves, but also maybe being more self-sufficient in terms of medicine, etc. And the question is, what sort of area of land does maybe a family need to support itself? And do you take that into account when you're thinking about the trees? So if I can ask you, Charles.
The first, that we have a technical team. So they assess the size of the plant, first thing. So they assess the size of the plant after 3 years or 5 years. Accordingly, we need to place the trees. If it's a long-term tree, we have to calculate that distance. Usually, I think Vel Murugan can help us, because he's the person in charge for the horticulture department, and he can help us what type of fruit trees and the size for each plant.
Thank you, Charles. In fact, SCAD is running a farm science center, and our role is to train the farmers on latest developments which are taking place in the agriculture universities and the agriculture research station. Since we are in the training field, it is our duty to train our farmers, especially the tree planting program. Now, before giving the trees, we used to give a lot of trainings to the stakeholders, whether it is a farmer or the self-help group members. So we used to give a lot of trainings about the tree planting program, the use of trees and the income they are getting from the trees. All sort of things will cover it in the training program. And we have fair idea about the soil types which are available in their villages, because we have a soil testing laboratory, and if at all we have any doubt in that particular area, we used to collect the soil sample from that particular village and analyze the soil in our lab, and based on the soil testing report, we recommend the trees. Because in our area, in majority of area heavily depend on rainfall for their agriculture and farming operations. So we advise the farmers to go for some drought tolerant trees, and even if you recommend some fruit trees, that should be a drought tolerant one. Otherwise, whatever the effort we are putting in this tree planting program, it should not go as waste. So we carefully select the trees, and based on its growing nature, its canopy size, we'll advise our farmers to take the pit and give manure, irrigation, plant protection aspects. No, they will we will cover all technical point before supplying the trees to our stakeholders. So we have technical expertise in the Farm Science Center. In association with the SCAD, we used to visit the village where we are planning to do some tree planting operations, and we will cover all the aspects.
Thank you very much. That really helps get a full picture. Yeah, thank you. It's very impressive, actually, the support frameworks. Edina, would you like to just finish off by talking about this question of sort of self-sufficiency and how what you do might feed in to help the village, for example?
Yes, there is a lot about teaching self-sufficiency, or to begin with that, to teach about gardening and taking care of plants. And that is what is happening in all the school gardens, beginning from the kindergarten age. But more recently, as I said, we started working with a foundation who works with very poor regions and villages in Hungary. And there, working with them, we want to help teach the villagers to get to like gardening. At the moment, even if they have a plot of land attached to their houses, they are not doing anything there. They're not even keeping animals. They don't have fruit trees. They don't do anything. So it's a big mission of this organization, and we want to help them with fruit trees and maybe with other things, to start a model garden and then inspire the villagers, involve villagers in taking care of the model garden and inspire them to start their own. So this is, it's a very, very first step, almost like zero step of starting teaching self-sufficiency. But yeah, you have to start from there. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Can we give our speakers another round of applause to say thank you? I think it was really great and very good answers to questions also. Thank you. Brilliant. And thanks again to Jen. Right, now we're going to have a group discussion like we had yesterday, except this time we're going to, the theme of the discussion is getting tree conscious. How can we all increase knowledge and awareness of the importance of trees and how to care for them in our local context? So this is where we've heard a lot of inspiring things. This is just to give people a chance to, us all to have a chance to think about what might we do to help this process. So if you can just bear with us for a couple of minutes while we sort out the breakout rooms. And we will have about half an hour for this discussion, and then we'll have some feedback. Okay. Oops. Okay. Just trying to make sure we have a facilitator in each one. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, Ian, I need to leave now, so I'm going, okay?
Sorry. Hold on,
You can see the rooms, can't you? And
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So I'll get them back in at 3:37, as you said. Yep.
Yeah. All right then. And
Okay.
and share the donation link and
Yeah, I'll put it at the top. I'll put it back in the chat now as well.
yeah.
So it's there.
And
Yeah,
invite them to sign up for our newsletter where they can get regular updates.
absolutely. Yeah. Will do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay.
See
Take
you
care of
soon.
yourself.
Bye.
Thanks for everything. Yeah. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Where did Zoe come from?
Hello. Sorry to come in so late. Am I way too late?
Hi there, Zoe. How are you? Ian here.
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah,
Yes,
fine.
hello.
Hi
Hello.
there.
This-
Yeah, well, they're all in breakout rooms at the moment.
Okay.
I've assigned you to one, but you don't have to join it. If you can stay if you want.
Yeah, no, I was just intrigued as to what it is, and sorry to turn up so late. I just yeah, trying 1,500 things at once as usual.
Yeah, I
But
know the
if it's
feeling.
okay just to listen and see
Yeah,
what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. They'll be back in 10 minutes. I've got to get them back in.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'll wait then until then. And
okay, yep. And then they'll just sort of
thank you.
feedback what we had. It's been really quite interesting, really, to get presentations about tree planting in India and Hungary from the horse's mouth, as they say. Sort of, yeah, it's worked very well. I mean,
Excellent.
it was a bit worrying whether we'd be able to manage it across continents, but yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I've been busy actually planting a hedge, so I'm sort of quite interested in
Right.
enjoying a little moment sitting down at a computer, weirdly enough. So.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're keeping well.
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how about you? You coping all right?
Yeah, I think so. It's really is stir crazy time though, isn't it? It's sort of so frustrating in so many respects. And
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm getting vaccinated next week.
I'll leave you to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good. Good luck.
Yeah.
Excellent.
See you.
I'll sign off video and stuff to save bandwidth and all that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers. Good. Everybody coming back in? Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too.
Yes.
Good. Excellent.
We only just got started.
Only just got started. Good Lord.
Well, no, we started, but you know, we were getting
That's-
warmed up.
That is the trouble, isn't it? You get yourselves to know each other, and then you're out of time. It's awful.
Yeah.
Neat.
So Ian, do I go first now?
Yeah.
And
Yes, if you're okay, Adina, if
Yes.
you're happy to sort of
Yes.
lead on that, be good. Thanks. I should just say that Janice has had to rush off to another meeting, so she's got herself double booked, unfortunately, for the last few minutes. So Adina's very kindly taken over on the feedback. Thanks.
Yes, hello everyone, welcome back. If you can, I would encourage you to switch on your cameras. I know it's eating up a lot of internet space, but I think it would be nice to see each other, if at all possible, of course. And what we will do now is ask each group to summarize what you have been talking about in about 3 or 4 minutes. I know it's a really difficult job, but in order for us to finish on time, we will have to keep to this time. Do we have a volunteer from any of the groups to start these summaries?
I'll volunteer. I'll start.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, that's okay. We had a wonderful, wide-ranging discussion, actually, which was really, really helpful and inspiring, which ranged from the importance of, knowing what you're doing when you're planting trees and looking after them and looking after the soil. And then we particularly looked at how we could encourage awareness and people to get involved and in tree planting and to enjoy tree planting. And Esther told us about a very lovely project near King's Cross area where they're creating skip gardens in rubbish skips and encouraging local people to take charge of them and use them. And that's an urban gardening project that's growing. But the thing is, many people in urban areas aren't really aware of the importance of trees, and that's a real challenge, I think, to all of us. We talked about one of the examples that was talked about yesterday, the sacred groves, and how that might be a very good way forward after COVID to perhaps try thinking about well-being groves, or some other word, spiritual groves, and encouraging that to be developed and people to adopt them in local areas, and maybe even to think about twinning them with other groves in other countries. We also talked about the importance of schools, and an argument around tree planting, perhaps from a more practical point of view, was around air quality, which is particularly bad in some areas in central cities. London is one example where it's really awful, and that those people perhaps who don't necessarily see the love of trees, have the love of trees aesthetically, might consider planting more trees or looking after more trees if they realize more clearly that trees could help improve their air quality along with other actions. So a few other suggestions, for example, about adoption of trees in areas to try and preserve them. Jen made the point that even if people don't particularly like trees and they worry that they may be causing messes and putting leaves on their cars, they could be won round by the argument that in areas where there's more trees, the property values are higher. So that was quite an interesting one. And Judith gave us a lovely suggestion where people are annoyed about leaves making a mess on their pavements and on their cars. We should get some fodder animals. So we all need to think about changing our dog walking to goat walking, I think. So that might help. We all need to get a goat. That was a very quick summary. We just rounded off with the importance of medicinal plants and herbal plants and how we could highlight that a bit more to encourage people to appreciate trees and plants generally.
you, Rose. Really great ideas. I'm like inspired to try out at least half of them. They're really, really good. And by the way, my colleagues are taking notes now, so we will be able to make you a summary of all the great ideas that have come up. So don't worry, nothing will be lost. Can we have another volunteer from another group? Yeah, Hugh, thank you. From our, I think you are raising your hand, right? From my own group.
Who's that? Hugh?
I think.
Oh, that's
Hugh.
it. Yeah, sorry. Well, it's a bit difficult to follow, Ros, because they seem to discuss. We were just getting warmed up, weren't we? As you said.
Yes.
So I suppose one of the things where we talked, people just highlighted a few projects that they knew about, and there was the one, was it the 10 million trees project in Hungary? Hungary has 10 million people. Everybody could plant a tree, and that was kind of largely a bottom-up initiative. But I think the point was made that you also, as well as bottom-up initiatives, you need the expertise to make sure that the trees you're planting are looked after properly. And we talked about how, is it initiatives, are they best if they come from the bottom up, or can top-down initiatives work? And I think the point was made about, apparently in Indonesia, if you don't plant a tree, you don't graduate from school. And I wasn't sure how that might translate into a place like Britain, so there was also, we touched on it, but we didn't have much time to develop it really. Which links to Rosie's point, how do you get people involved who aren't, I guess there's a chunk of people who are really committed, there's a chunk of people who just don't care, but there's a big chunk of people who might care, but they just need to be guided in the right direction. How do we motivate those people was an issue. We also talked about, getting media personalities like Brian May, who's been involved in this. Is that a good way to inspire people? So we were beginning to develop more ideas, but we thought we had longer than we did. So that's the main things we there was reference to a project started by an individual in Croatia, where he was trying to deal with sort of unsustainable logging. And the idea, there was a music festival there, and around the music festival goers had to plant trees as part of the festival. So those are some of the things. There's a question about, is it top down, is it bottom up, how to get people involved who aren't necessarily committed, but who are interested in the whole notion. You've got to have expertise to back up planting and growing the trees. People need support in that. Those are the main things, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. I think thanks for the great summary. And I think these ideas maybe supplement the other group's ideas in a nice way, because we approached the topic from a different angle. And let's hear from the third group, who is going to speak for you. Yes, Katie, thank you.
Yes, I was in Charles's
Sorry.
group. Hi. So we had people from India, Hungary, Bristol, Stroud and Oxfordshire. So we had a very broad range of people, which was great. So we heard from India about the importance of educating the rural youth to get engaged and having that training in school and college about the benefits of trees and getting youngsters engaged in the tree planting. Then we heard the importance of the village community leaders and making sure that they are really on board. Then we were talking about the UK and the kind of barriers to getting engaged with tree planting. As a city dweller, if you don't have a car, it can be difficult to get there to a tree planting event. And how it might be lovely to have more information about the trees in our cities to kind of build awareness. And then noticing, I guess perhaps particularly with the pandemic, people appreciating trees. With somebody in the group been to Westonbirt Arboretum at Christmas time with lights in the trees, and it sounded absolutely wonderful, and lots of different ways for people to really appreciate the trees. Then we heard about Oxfordshire and how there's a very large house building program there, and groups that are active in trying to save the older trees, but the real challenges there, and learning that tree protection orders don't protect trees once planning permission is granted. So that was new to me, quite concerning to hear. And we were hearing there about how NGOs really coming together can really help to stand up to the developers and make sure that trees are protected in those circumstances. And perhaps what Ros was talking about earlier of trees actually increasing property values, perhaps developers need to learn that. And then we were hearing from Hungary, the work sort of engaging gypsy communities who are not very keen on vegetables, but how that was a very hard engagement activity, but once they started sort of planting their own, and they were starting to change their diets and experiment much more. So I think that kind of covers off a number of the points that were raised. Yeah, very wide-ranging discussion.
Yeah, but thank you again. Very interesting points that you have added to the overall discussion. And I think also the importance of protecting the trees that we already have, because even if we plant a lot of young trees, they are not yet, they will take years or decades to provide the same kind of value as the older trees do. So it's very important to protect them and maintain them as well. And finally, the last group, Christoph, was it you who was going to summarize?
Yes, just very briefly, we also had a very diverse discussion about trees and in connection to things. One of the things Saravanan mentioned who was one of yesterday's presenters, and it's also in the chat, that beside tree diversity, we should also consider soil diversity, soil microbial diversity, which is also very important in connection to trees. And then we also talked about that in many of the cases and places there should be a map of the a tree log of something or tree diary of trees that we already have in areas, and then we should be increasing the green areas in many of the places. Especially flooding is in the UK can be a very problematic thing. And where you have sheep and cattle grazing on the higher grounds, and then trees cannot really grow. So this can be a problem in connection to climate change as well. And then we also talked about how much we are not really conscious ourselves about trees. And then these 2 days presentations gave us an insight that trees can be looked upon in different ways. And then starting with ourselves, then we can also spread this knowledge and raising the awareness about the art and spirituality that can be linked and combined with the trees. And then Orsi mentioned that in Hungary, in many of the places, villages have even less trees than towns. So maybe we should place more attention to this and give more attention to it. That in many of the places we just have lawns, but we don't plant enough trees because due to laziness, or we use too much chemicals, so that can be a really problematic thing. Catherine mentioned a very interesting thing, I haven't heard about it, which is tree cathedrals. So this was really good to hear about. And then we also talked about that individuals maybe or should be made responsible for trees. So not only planting the trees, as Ian said yesterday, that 1 million people should plant a tree every year. But it's not only about planting, but also taking care of the tree throughout our lifetime. Probably trees will live longer than ourselves. And then also we talked about, it was a very common thing that we know very little about trees. We don't know the trees. We know maybe a few species of them or kinds of them, but we don't know much about them. So this is something that we should maybe think about. And there was also an information that it's quite important, or maybe I misunderstood it, but I took note of it, that in the UK, some of the councils maybe provide some funds if you want to plant trees. So maybe you should pick it up and then take up on it. And then also we should approach our local councils and then have maybe these kind of schemes initiated. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, really nice points. It seems like the four groups really brought many aspects of tree planting and tree maintenance and tree knowledge together. And as I said, we have taken notes of these, and we will prepare a summary, which I think, Ian, we can promise to share through the Schumacher newsletter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And maybe this is the right time to encourage all of us to become tree agents, tree change agents, or tree guardians, maybe that's a better word. And maybe this is the time for me to hand over to you, Ian, so that you can explain about the newsletter and how we can all continue to stay in touch and work together.
Thank you, Adina, very much indeed. One little thing, just to sort of bring home a little bit more the connection between trees. I've just had a birthday and I was given a book called The Entangled Life. It's all about fungi, really, but in it, it talks about how trees communicate chemically between them and support each other, even across species, which is quite a fascinating story. So I certainly recommend people getting deep into the undergrowth and what happens beneath the soil in some respects that keeps our trees going, and it's vital. If that doesn't happen, trees die. So this connection between them is a fascinating story. I think it's something we need to be much more aware of. I was very struck by what we've actually covered over the last couple of days now, and they are intense sessions, but I think that's the way we have to work with this medium nowadays. And we covered, as I say, quite a lot of things, but there are quite a lot of things we haven't covered as well. We haven't really looked downstream from trees and the use of timber, and the fact that wood is such an important part of our lives. We ought to be using more wooden things to replace some of the very high energy intensive and fossil fuel intensive materials that we do use. I think, as I mentioned a minute ago about Arboretum as well, I think we maybe ought to encourage more of those plant developments to actually happen as well. They are wonderful places for not just preserving species and planting trees, but also they are places where you get a deep spiritual sense of what nature is about and the value of being on this planet. So I would encourage maybe the idea of local arboreta to sort of be developed as well, so that we don't necessarily have to have great big ones, we can have little ones. And maybe the idea of tree circles where the trees are all different, but they're planted in a circle so that we can actually get that variety going. So that's a suggestion I would like to throw in there. Certainly we're going to continue on with tree circles and keep looking at how many trees we can plant, and to do that we obviously need to raise as much money as we possibly can. So if you can help us by broadcasting what we do and sharing the links to the donation pages, that would be great. There's one donation page in the chat room down there at the moment, so please use that, spread it around so we can keep building on this. And there are very different angles you can take on it. It can be linked to carbon calculations, and and then work out a suitable amount that people can actually use to compensate for events, whatever they might be doing. And the story there is very much it's more than carbon emission saving. It's about the social aspects of this and the fact that these are livelihoods involved as well. So I think that's a very strong message we can put out through tree circles. Also, we'd be absolutely delighted if you want to keep in touch with us. If you aren't already on our mailing list, there's a link to it there if you wanted to sign up. We can't put you on our mailing list directly because of the regulations nowadays that prevent us from doing that. So you actually deliberately have to go and join our mailing list if that's okay. So at that point, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody and ask if there are any last minute comments or questions that anybody has.
Can I just say, Ian, that a couple of people have put in the chat that they would really welcome an online course on more detail about trees.
Right.
So it's a suggestion to Schumacher to run an online course on
That
trees.
sounds a really good idea. And Jen, I think you're still here somewhere. That's not a bad idea, is it, Jen?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm still here, Ian. Absolutely. I think that's an excellent thought.
Right. And we are
Okay.
looking to continue this conversation. And Jen, you are hoping to organize a follow-up to this?
Yes, I will be very happy to. I would love to continue the conversation. This has been, I know, extremely inspiring for me, and I hope it has been for other people as well.
Great. Well, that's even more reason to make sure you're on our mailing list so that we can let you know, and you can join that discussion as it goes forward.
Ian, I have a question before concluding this session. See, for the first 2 days, we are talking about planting trees and its importance, biodiversity, carbon sequestration, reducing carbon dioxide, etc., etc. I think this is the right time to shift our focus on other aspects also. Because yesterday, when you are presenting your session, you talked about this diseases occurred in trees in UK. And my colleague, Mr. Charles, also mentioned about the diseases and other things. See, for example, this climate change we need to address because in Tamil Nadu, where we are now, no, after 100 years, we received the highest amount of rainfall. Earlier, we heard about a lot of things about the cyclone and other things. Nowadays, the landslides and cyclone is a common phenomenon in Tamil Nadu also. So 2 years back, the Kaja cyclone, which uprooted a lot of trees in Nagapattinam district. So this is the right time to focus our attention on other aspects also, because whatever we are investing in tree plantation, our effort, money, it should not go as waste or meaningless. So we need to focus our attention on other aspects also, how to protect these trees during the natural disaster period like this. Now, climate change, say you mentioned about the diseases in trees, no?
Yep,
so we are talking about the tree plantation aspects alone. But if anything goes wrong, no, whatever we are investing, no, our money, effort, no, everything should be a meaningful one.
Great.
So yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. I think you're absolutely right there, Veronica, and we ought to collaborate on this. Yeah, absolutely.
Sir,
right.
I want to add one more point to Velmurugan. Just to meet the natural calamities, we should select only the native species.
Indeed.
Which are all socially acceptable and which are all very useful to the local people. If we select that type of species, definitely we can assure a preventive measure against the natural calamities like heavy wind and natural flooding.
Right, indeed. These are extremely valuable points, and it is really important that it's the way we're planting a tree. They have to be looked after, but there are some natural problems arising that are going to be damaging trees, and much as we can do to prevent that is actually important, whether it's protecting from the environment and the weather effects, or whether it's protecting from disease. These are really important things, and I hope over the next few years we can work on that together. That would be a very good collaboration to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, everybody, we've hit 4 o'clock. How about that? Spot on. Thank you all very much for what we've had in the last couple of days. It's been remarkable, and I sort of think we've got a great deal of material to work with and some great ideas. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. So if there's no final questions, thank you, and take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
all our speakers and all the people who have helped behind the scenes. That's great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
To meet you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, bye.
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 That's really good.
Thanks a lot, Ian. Thanks.
Thanks, Christoph. Lovely. I think the idea of doing some research on how to protect trees at a global level down to a local level, that sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian, and it was wonderful.
Thanks, Charles. Good to see you. Take care of yourselves. Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll talk again very
Thank
soon.
you, Charles, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Thank you, Saravan. Lovely. Take care.